Good night, everybody. This is the Horn Takes Podcast, your very rough around the edges Texas sports talk destination. I'm your host, Sean Redfern. It's BYU week, coming off a not so amazing win over the Houston Cougars. But it's BYU week. It's another week. It's another opportunity for this team to take another step forward. And it's Tuesday night. Typically, we'd go on Tuesday at lunch. Had a lot of scheduling conflicts today. So we're doing our after-action review tonight. We're going to do the Trace Otra games recap for Week 8. And then we'll talk about what Drunk Sean got right, what Drunk Sean got wrong. We do Exaggeration Monday, which is just all of Drunk Sean's thoughts, opinions. And then on Tuesdays, we like to actually have watched the game again. See what we got wrong, see what we got right. And then we'll have the quick and dirty on those BYU Cougars. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a follow, give us a subscribe. Appreciate it. It won't cost you guys a thing. If you just like to listen to podcasts, you can check us out at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com, or you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Trace Otra games Week 8. A lot of big games this weekend, and we like to do the big ones. Like, I don't want to do just easy ones. I'm trying to do games where you don't know who's going to win. First game, number 7 Penn State at number 3 Ohio State. We talked about how both of these defenses were statistically just absolutely amazing. And how really neither of the offenses were statistically amazing. But we did think Ohio State was better offensively. Ohio State was going to be at home. The wide receivers for Ohio State, clearly a better group. Even before the game, we thought they were a better group. Harrison winds up with 11 catches for 162 yards and a touchdown. He was basically the only player on the field offensively that just really nobody could contain. We said Ohio State wins this game 27-23. Ohio State ends up winning it in a really, really close, defensive, kind of old school football game, 20-12. You don't get to see a lot of games like that. And we talked about it on the show Monday night, what we know after 8 weeks of football. And we said we know Ohio State has a really good defense. And we know Penn State has an absolutely fantastic defense. Really fun to watch those two teams play defensively. They're going to be tough to beat just simply because the defenses are so good. Man, if Penn State had a good offense, they would be my favorite to win the national championship, hands down. Next game was number 17, Tennessee, on the road at number 11, Alabama. We talked when we broke down these Trace Otra games, we talked about Tennessee trying to build a streak of their own. It had been 15 years before last season since they beat Alabama. Everybody's been talking all year long about Alabama this, Alabama that, struggling. They don't look good. Not us. We've been saying Alabama, while they have struggled, they don't look like some of the more dominant Alabama teams, but all they do is just keep winning football games. Ultimately, I said, give me Milroe making plays. Give me Saban losing his mind on the sidelines over Josh Heupel and that group of Tennessee Volunteers any day of the week. I said Bama would win, but I thought Tennessee would cover. I thought the score would be around 23-17. Obviously, 34-20. Big defensive score by Alabama late. Late-ish. So we're 2-0 going into the nightcap. Number 16, Duke at number 4, Florida State. I kind of nailed this one from like just the way the game would unfold type of deal. I said Duke's defense is really good. It's going to keep them around for a while. And they did. It was 20-17 Duke heading into the fourth quarter. I said Riley Leonard probably won't play. And if he does, one of his biggest attributes is not going to be that much of a threat. He's really killed some teams earlier this season running the football. He did it to Notre Dame. He did it to Clemson. Obviously, coming off of a high ankle sprain, it's going to be sore. It's going to be stiff. You're not going to have a lot of confidence, and it's probably not, structurally sound. But I said in the end, Florida State's going to be too much. They're going to roll. I said 31-13. It ended up being 38-20. So I just about nailed that one from a score perspective as well. So that's our first 3-0 week on the Trace Otra games. We've been gunning for that, and we just have come up short. So we're now 14-10 on the year. We'll have 3 more Trace Otra games we'll talk about on Prediction Friday. After action review, Houston Cougars edition. This game was super frustrating if you're a Texas fan for just a whole lot of reasons. Very fast start. Looked like the team and the coaching staff just all kind of lost focus at the same time. Just the complete inability to communicate in the secondary led to just so many big plays for Houston. Play after play after play. But it's funny, you go back and rewatch it, and maybe it's just because you know the outcome when you rewatch it, but it did not seem as bad to me the second time around as it did being live drunk Sean. Offensively, not a great outing for Texas. They started off, like we said, on fire. 21 points, like in a blink of an eye. Just moving up and down the field. Looked like, they could just do whatever they wanted to. It didn't matter what they tried. It was working. Houston couldn't stop them. But at the end of the game, man, Houston made some adjustments. And I don't mean at the end of the game. Throughout the course of the game, Houston made some adjustments, especially in that secondary. Forced a lot of checkdowns. Really took away the long ball after Worthy beat them deep earlier in the game. Only 141 yards rushing, which I was really surprised about. Houston did not have a good rushing defense coming into this game. Matter of fact, their average was higher than this. Brooks had 20 carries for 99 yards, and that ends his 100-yard streak. He had 100 yards in 4 straight games, I believe. Baxter had 6 totes for 42 yards and a touchdown, including that 16-yarder that looked really, really good about halfway through the fourth quarter. 219 yards passing, not a lot, especially when you consider Ewers has been 300 or more the last couple games. But he was dialed in, 23 of 29 for 211, 2 touchdowns. Worthy had 6 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. Mitchell had only 1 grab, but it was a 14-yard touchdown. You had J.T. Sanders with a nice catch down the field. Probably would have scored if he could have broke just that 1 tackle. And then Jonathan Brooks, 8 catches for 51 yards. We mentioned the checkdowns. Jonathan Brooks was a recipient of a lot of checkdowns in this game. Offense had no turnovers. That's always great. They were terrible on third down, 3 for 12. They were pretty good on fourth down, 3 for 5. What's up with Texas going for it on fourth down so much this year? That is just something I don't think we've seen that much out of Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns until really this year. But they go for it a lot, and they seem to make it a lot. Texas did give up 3 sacks. I thought this offensive line is sometimes they look really, really good. And then other times they just get confused, which allows them to get physically overmatched. Sometimes you got to just know when to throw the football away if you're Quinn Ewers as well. Players that popped. That's just, I'm watching players. I'm watching for certain things on the field when I'm rewatching these games. Players that popped for me were Quinn Ewers, 79% completions. like I said, he was dialed in. He took what the defense gave him. He landed his shots downfield when they were there. That pass to Worthy was probably the best ball Quinn Ewers has ever thrown at the University of Texas. I thought Xavier Worthy was another player that popped. He quietly had almost 100 yards. He is just so explosive, man. I know Sark wants to get him down the field, and I know there's this he doesn't like the stop routes and things. He likes to get the ball to wide receivers while they're moving, which I totally am down with, but he catches those little 5-yard hitches. He drives off the line of scrimmage, gets that cornerback to turn his hips, and then he just breaks down and turns her. That is deadly. And it's an easy throw. With a guy like Worthy, that can get you 6 real quick. I wonder if we'll see some of that this weekend. Just some stuff like that to get Malik Murphy into the game, into a rhythm. Those are easy throws. They're easy to see not to throw it. Not a lot to think about. It's a one-on-one deal. Again, I thought Jonathan Brooks popped in this game. He's just so versatile. He can do so many different things. He is, let me think how to say it. He's like the most elusive, non-elusive runner I've ever seen. He's not very shifty. But man, he like guys just don't tackle him. And then C.J. Baxter in limited action, man, I was excited to see C.J. Baxter not get up limping at any point during this game. He is a talented dude, and we've been saying that. We've been saying he's a talented guy. We've understood he's a talented guy, but we're like, dude, Sark, let somebody else tote the rock. Let's get this guy healthy. I forgot how talented he looked. He looked really good in this game. In limited action. I expect, we talked about, how do we see some different things out of the offense pass wise to kind of get Malik Murphy into the game? Are we going to see him lean heavily on the run to kind of keep the pressure off of Malik Murphy? If they do, it's going to take Jonathan Brooks. It's going to take C.J. Baxter. It's going to take maybe even Savion Red. I like Savion Red and that little Wildcat. I forgot what everybody's calling it. I'll just call it the Wildcat. The Wild Red. The Big Red. I don't know. Defensively, they held Houston to 14 yards rushing, which is pretty incredible. And I know Houston really didn't try to run the ball that much in this game, but even when they did try, they just didn't. They just couldn't. I don't know how many attempts they had, but I know it wasn't a lot. It certainly wasn't a feature of their offense. But you almost got to think when you don't run the ball, as little as they run the ball, that when you do, you kind of catch people off guard, and they just absolutely didn't. The Texas defensive line and really the front seven ate that shit up all night long. On the flip side, Houston did have 378 passing yards, which is absolutely ridiculous. Second most on a Texas defense since PK's been the defensive coordinator. And really, man, it was just all miscommunications. Just guys not knowing where they're supposed to be and who they were supposed to be covering, which routes they were supposed to match. I don't know. I'll get into that later. Defense forced a couple turnovers. Really nice sack fumble by Jalen Ford. And then a nice play by Taff in the end zone to intercept a pass that just wasn't a great pass. But he was in the play. He was where he was supposed to be. That's the thing about these zone coverages. Just be where you're supposed to be, and if the quarterback makes mistakes, you got bodies there that can pick the ball off. And I guess they got 3 turnovers if you count the 4 and out late in the game there. They held Houston to 4 of 13 on third downs and 2 of 3 on fourth downs. Again, the only fourth down they didn't convert was the one at the end of the game. Houston's very last drive of the game. Apparently the most controversial spot that's ever happened in college football. I don't know. From the broadcast, it looked like he was there. All we could see, though, is the unofficial yellow line. I think they reviewed it. I can't remember. I don't know. Texas had 3 sacks. Again, we talked about Jalen Ford's sack fumble. Ethan Burke had a sack. And then Alfred Collins. Man, Alfred Collins had one of the most beautiful, like, mechanical pass rushes I've ever seen very early in that game. He was one of the players that popped. It wasn't really just that play. He had a couple plays early where he got a lot of pressure as well. But that early pass rush where he got a sack was just great, man. You see that from Alfred. And we've been talking about Alfred Collins for a long time. Going back to last year, we've been talking about Alfred Collins and just the physical ability that guy has, and just how it's unfortunate that it just completely hasn't clicked, and he hasn't just grown into this player that's consistent, right? Tavondre Sweat type of guy, just consistent. Over and over again, you know he's going to be doing what he's supposed to be doing, and you know he's going to be beating people badly physically. Alfred Collins has that type of ability, just can't consistently get it done. But that pass rush earlier in the game, and he comes off the ball, the guard goes to put his hands up. He just smacks both his hands down, swims right over. I mean, it was just like textbook. Like, I almost cried. It was like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I'm sitting there going, man, please be the moment. Please be the moment for Alfred Collins where he just goes, damn, that's what I'm supposed to do. Let me just go do that. This one's going to sound kind of crazy, especially based off of what I said yesterday. Hey, part of Exaggeration Monday is being wrong, folks. And considering how much passing yards this defense gave up. But I thought the DBs popped a little bit in this. When they were in position and they weren't confused and they weren't getting chipped and they weren't, getting caught up in these little rub type routes and those types of things, they covered very well and they made plays on the ball. Guy like Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron didn't play the whole first half, came in the second half and made an instant impact. That guy's just so good around. He's just such a good tackler, so good around the line of scrimmage. You don't see him get targeted that much in the passing game, which is why he doesn't have any statistics. There was a top 100 college football players so far, like halfway through the season list that came out a week or so ago. And a lot of Texas fans were really pissed off that Jahdae Barron wasn't on that list. And I was like, man, I get it. He's a great player. Yeah, he doesn't take the ball away. People want DBs to take the ball away. That's what differentiates like Thorpe Award winners from just regular guys. The Thorpe Award guys take the ball away. And Jahdae Barron doesn't do that. But in his defense, he just doesn't get thrown at a lot. And when he does, he makes plays. Jalen Ford, we mentioned him earlier. 6 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, a forced fumble in the third quarter. Very, very last year Jalen Ford-esque game. Haven't really seen him. He's been impactful in games, but you haven't really seen him put his footprint on a game. Like he hadn't put his stamp on a game in a while. And I felt like this game, Jalen Ford put his stamp on this game defensively. Special teams, Bert Auburn made all his kicks. That's good. Keelan Robinson had 2 really awesome kickoff returns for 78 yards. Ryan Sanborn punted his ass off. 3 punts for 157 yards, 1 inside the 20. The Gunners on punts were on point. We talked about those guys earlier this season. Keelan Robinson and Keaton Crawford, I don't know. People say dumb shit like this all the time, but I'm going to say it anyway. Like, they could be the 2 best gunners in the country. They just get down the field and they wreak havoc. They are so good getting down the field. They almost caused a turnover late in the game. They did cause a muff. Luckily for Houston, somebody fell on it. Trey Wisner showed up big again on kickoff coverage. Flip side of that, I didn't think the kickoff coverage was all that great. Houston got a couple of big returns, and I know that returner from Houston is really good, which means that unit is really good because the returner can't do it all himself. So you can tell they practice that. That's like a thing they want to be good at Houston, and they are. But here's my question. Why cannot we just kick the damn ball through the back of the end zone? I don't. Can we not find one kid in the state of Texas that wants to wear burnt orange and put a white helmet with the hookums on it, with the daggum Bevo on the side? Can we not find one kid that could just kick that shit through the back of the end zone every time? And if he can, why do we not do that? I don't understand, man. There's some of these kickers, you just don't get a return unless the wind is just powerfully against them. I don't know what the wind was doing in Houston. Maybe it was blowing hard. I don't know. I just feel like that has to be, like, to me, I don't want to subject players on my team to the physical beating you get running down the field as fast as you can and crashing into people. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with the threat of the other team making a nice play and getting a huge return, maybe putting it in the end zone. Those are easy points. I just don't understand why you wouldn't just kick the ball through the back of the end zone if you're capable. And if the guy's not capable, that's one thing. Find somebody that's capable. There has to be one kid on the University of Texas's campus that can just kick the ball through the back of the end zone. Let's talk about what Drunk Sean got right. We talked about the officiating. God almighty. The officiating was terrible in this game. And, folks, it was terrible on both sides. There were so many missed calls in this game. I mean, it was worse. It was worse than I could have possibly imagined on the rewatch. And I'm pretty good at I am pretty good at seeing stuff during a live game. I even see stuff at the stadium. Like, if I'm at the game, I can see stuff, and I just go, that's a penalty. Like, that's coming back. That's a penalty. Or I scream, like, out of my mind, why was that not a penalty? Because it was an obvious penalty. They were bad, man. And again, I know everybody's focused on this spot thing for Houston, and I think it sucks. If they screwed that up, I think that sucks for Houston. I know they screwed one up earlier in the game. They gave Houston like 6 yards of field position on a play where the ball carrier was clearly out of bounds. 6 yards short. Holding. I mean, I wouldn't even call it holding. It was like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It was wrestling. Offensive pass interferences. Just, I don't know. So we definitely got the officiating sucks right. We felt like live Drunk Sean felt like they featured Jonathan Brooks offensively in this game. We've been talking about it for a while. Like, Jonathan Brooks is sort of the catalyst to this offense. Let's feature him. Let's get him the ball in the passing game. Let's give him his touches running the ball. I felt like they did a pretty good job of that. He had 28 touches. 20 rushing the ball, 8 catches. I think that's a good workload. You're offensively, I don't know how many they ran in this game, but you're probably getting, between 60 and 75 plays maybe. On a crazy game, you may get up into the 80s. So he probably got around 50% of the touches in this game for Texas. We said the fake field goal was dumb as fuck on Exaggeration Monday, and we were absolutely right. The momentum completely shifted after that play. Not only that, but folks, Bert Auburn is not an athlete. Like, the only way that play was going to work is if Houston was completely asleep or they went on some all-out rush to try to block the kick. That's it. Bert Auburn is not outrunning anybody. He's not running over anybody. So the only thing the coaches could have been thinking was, like, we feel like Houston's coming after the ball, and they come after the ball in such a way that if we can get this pass completed, there's going to be nobody out there. Again, going back to Exaggeration Monday, I say if you're going to go for it on fourth down, just send your offense out there. They're the experts. You don't call the carpet cleaner to fix your cable. Call the cable guy, man. You shouldn't call the punter and the kicker to go be your offense on 4th and 6. You should just put your offense in there. What Drunk Sean got wrong, I thought they underutilized the running game. I was really disappointed again. I've been bagging on Sark for so long about, man, just please run the ball. And I thought they did it again, but they had 37 attempts, 29 from the running backs. Again, 30 carries. That's probably close to 50% of their offensive plays. Unless you're 95 Nebraska or you're, one of these service academies. And you know what's, the service academies are crazy now. They're all running shotgun and throwing the ball. What's going on? I said the defensive line was pretty good against the run. I was totally wrong about that. They were fucking amazing against the run. Like, they were so good against the run, Houston just didn't even try to do it. I said the back end of the defense was terrible. I think the results of the back end of the defense were probably terrible in this game, but I don't think they're terrible. I just think they don't communicate well. And I don't know if some of that miscommunication comes from the coaching staff in between plays. There's probably a series of things that cause these huge breakdowns. But they just got to get better at, the staff has got to get better at communicating to the players. A lot of these offenses run fast, man. We saw Oklahoma just snap the ball like literally like every 10 seconds or something crazy like that a week ago. Houston wasn't nearly that fast, but they're not huddling. They're coming up, they're getting set, and they're running plays. So the staff's got to figure out like where that communication breakdown is and fix that. Physically, these guys are good. It's just the mental part of it and being at the right place at the right time. Final thoughts on the Houston Cougars, and then we'll put them to bed, and we won't talk about them ever again. We'll go forward and talk about those BYU Cougars. Sark's got to have a better plan, a better game plan for this 3-down lineman drop 8 defense that he's struggled at so badly for the last 2.5 years. Because that is coming. Houston, that ain't what they would normally do. And they did it in this game because they saw that give us trouble. It's probably the only thing that gives Sark trouble. TCU's done it to him in the past. Oklahoma State's done it to him in the past. Everybody's going to do it to him. I think the game plan against that type of defense, it's really kind of two things. You got to attack the edge of their defensive line with the run game, and it's got to be quick, and it's got to be power. little trap type action, little counter tray type action, quick stuff on the corners, on the edge of the defense. Maybe outside zone in a hurry, but these little stretch type plays that take too long to develop, no good. It gives all those guys that are standing 3-4 yards off the line of scrimmage. There's essentially like 3 down linemen, and then there's 4 guys that are basically playing linebacker positions. And they're just staring into the backfield. They see the running back get the ball, and it's kind of just like build a wall. It's kind of like that old school flag football concept that you teach little kids. Because little kids just want to go after the flag, right? They want to get to the guy, get the flag. And so what you get is like this beehive of kids where they're all in one spot. So all the kid's got to do is just get away from that, and he goes and scores. If you teach them to kind of wall it off and let the runner come to you and let him juke around until you kind of squeeze in on him and he has nowhere to go. That's what these defenses are doing to these slow developing run plays. And then I think you got to key the safety depth in the passing game. You know, everything obviously can't be down the field. What they're going to do a lot of times, those safeties are going to be playing pretty far off the ball, and they're going to drop into coverage. It makes it hard to get the ball down the field with 3 safeties. But every once in a while, they come down. When they come down, that's when you know you got your man-to-man coverage. That's when you take your shots deep. When those guys do bail, there's got to be a better plan. There's got to be better check down options. All I really saw in this game was just the running back kind of flare out into the flat a little bit. And that was basically it. I'd like to see some shallow crosses. We talked about how Steve Sarkisian likes to get these guys the ball while they're moving. Let's get Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington coming across 4 or 5 yards deep. Let's get them running DBs into each other. And let's get easy 5-yard throws that can turn into 60-yard touchdowns because those guys are so fast. Let's do something with the running backs. Different. Instead of just flaring them out, what about some angle routes where they move to the flat and then come across the formation into the middle of the field where these big, wide-ass, gaping holes are because everybody's just ballooning out. Screenplay when it's soft. They did one against Houston. I think they picked up 15, 16 yards on it. There needs to be like a package of plays that when teams do this to Sark and the Texas offense, they know exactly what everybody on the team knows exactly what this means now. It means all the game plan we've been working on this whole week, we can throw it down into the trash, and let's have these few changes that we can throw in based off of how this team changed on us. You got to make adjustments. They got to be fast. You might as well plan it ahead of time. Sark's a smart dude. I bet you he starts doing that. Maybe he already has started doing that and the plan just doesn't work, or maybe it's execution. I don't know. I absolutely hated the QB sneak on 3rd and short for a bunch of reasons. Quinn Ewers weighs 195 pounds. He's not pushing a pile. It's just not going to happen. And then there's like the whole injury thing. Like, why would you even want to subject him to that? You got a stable of running backs. You got this wild red package. I mean, really, the entire playbook is at your disposal on 3rd and 1 because you know you're going for it. I don't ever see that shit again. I mean, I guess with Malik Murphy, it probably works. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'5", 240 pounds. That dude can probably push a pile. Got to get the tight ends out of the blocking scheme during passing downs. It doesn't work. To me, that's one of those you can just wad up and throw in the trash. If the Big 12 officials aren't going to call holding and they're not going to call offensive pass interference, that should become part of the game plan for Texas. And I know that sounds shitty, but man, go back and watch that game and you see Texas players across the field on offense making blocks, and when it looks like they're going to get into that hold territory, they let go, they put their hands up. What you saw Houston do was just wrestle people. There was no hands up. It was like, man, I got you. I'm busted anyway. You're not making a play. The rub routes, the pick plays, they just don't call them. If they're not going to call them, do it. We talked about the secondary just being confused and the communication problem. I don't know if things are too complicated for those guys. Maybe it is too complicated. But like little pre-snap motions where a guy is set up in the middle of a trip formation and he just motions to the slot, like literally 3 yards, should not cause a guy to be wide ass open. That's not that big of a change. If you're in man coverage, you just recount. If you're in zone coverage, it shouldn't matter what he's doing. I think PK needs to figure out how to get more pressure defensively. The defensive line, I mean, bless their heart, those defensive ends, they were in the backfield all night long getting just flat mugged, man. And it's not getting called. So you got to find a way to beat it, or you got to bring pressure from other places. Didn't see a lot of stunts in this game. Didn't see a lot of games with the defensive line. It was kind of just a straight up 4-man rush. Maybe that's because they were afraid of his running ability. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they do against Caden Slovis, who is, not known to be a runner. Probably isn't going to hurt you running the ball. And then I think the other side of that is, the guy's got to execute what's called. There was a corner blitz play where Gilbo had Donovan Smith dead to the rights. We have seen it multiple times in the last 2 seasons. And they don't do it a lot. But this corner blitz, and as you're watching it unfold, you're just going, that's a sack. And then they just take the poorest angle to try to make a play, and they give up that outside contain. Last year against Alabama, it ended up being a long run that set up a game-winning field goal. This year against Houston, it was a touchdown pass. I feel like they're late on the linebacker games. There was one play where I believe it was Jalen Ford rushed up the middle to take on the running back, and then the other linebacker, I think it was Benda, kind of followed him or was supposed to follow him through the hole, and he was just late. So by the time he was even close to being able to make a play, Donovan Smith had already got the ball out to a wide open guy running across the middle of the field. These blitzers, like these secondary blitzers and these linebacker blitzers, they don't always attack the guy that shows up to block them. They try to move around them, so that messes up the lanes. It messes up everything. Like, if you get a free run, make a sack. But if you don't, crack somebody's fucking head that's trying to block you. Cause some havoc. Mess some shit up. Give the quarterback something to think about. Notice. This defense cannot continue to fail at the end of the first half and at the beginning of the second half on defense. It's 2 games in a row, man. 2 games in a row, they've given up points. The drive to end the half and the very first drive of the second half. And they were maybe one of those, like, plethora of shitty officiating calls away from it being 3. We saw it the Oklahoma game, end of the first half, score. Beginning of the second half, score. Last drive of the second half, score. That damn near happened against Houston. They have got to figure out a way to win these critical drives. I feel like when they play tight coverage and they get any kind of pressure, force the quarterback to get the ball out, they're really, really good. They're there in coverage. They make tackles. They make plays on the ball. I don't feel like they struggle that bad until they start playing some soft coverage and they get confused about where they're supposed to be. Malik Murphy gets his first meaningful action of his college football career in this game, and granted, he only threw 2 passes, completed one of them. Should have had 2 completions. He had Adonai Mitchell wide open. But it's his time to shine. I mean, we talked about Malik Murphy last year just randomly. Just, man, that dude can spin it. I don't even know what I was talking about on this show, and I just stopped, and Malik Murphy popped into my head, and I was like, man, that dude can spin it. Had a really good spring game. A lot of teams came after him, and from a transfer perspective, trying to get him to leave, supposedly. What a cool story for him, man. This is kind of like a good moment. This is like, it's his time. What's he going to do with it? I love the dude, man. I think he's talented. I think the team responds well to him. It's going to be really cool to see how he responds to this moment that he's got. I mean, we could be seeing the beginning of the Malik Murphy era at the University of Texas. We don't know. We don't know how long Ewers is going to be out. We don't know how long or how well Malik Murphy's going to play. It's kind of a sucky time to be a Texas fan because there's all that uncertainty, but it's kind of exciting as well. And I think, again, if Malik Murphy can just realize that everything doesn't have to be a fastball and just kind of play within the offense, distribute the ball. I really, truly do believe that we will see this offense not really miss a beat if he can do those things. Just like we talked about Quinn Ewers at the beginning of this season, doesn't have to win Texas football games. He just got to distribute and protect the ball. I think Malik Murphy is completely capable of distributing and protecting the ball the same way Quinn Ewers has done it most of this season. So I'm ready for the Malik Murphy era, however long it is. I think a lot of Texas fans have been waiting on this opportunity for him. A lot of Texas fans want to see him play. Now we get to quick and dirty BYU Cougars edition. They're 5-2, man, and I don't know how. They're 2-2 in their first season of the Big 12. They got wins against Tech and Cincinnati, which aren't good teams. They got losses to KU and TCU. I think KU is a talented team. They're a dangerous team. I think TCU is a dangerous team, but only because they're either really, really good or they're really, really bad. This BYU team is one of very few teams that actually have a winning record in the series against Texas. They're 4-1 against Texas, including the last 2. But they are just not statistically a good football team. They only rush the ball 79 yards per game. And I've been seeing that the last couple of weeks because some of the statistical formulas I do involve the teams that we've played and the teams that other people have played, and they've come up in that scenario multiple times. I thought it was wrong. I thought like the website I was looking at was wrong. They're terrible at running the ball. And you know what else? They're not even close. Not even close to the top 50 in any major offensive or defensive team category. I have no idea how they're 5-2. USC and Pitt transfer, Caden Slovis, he's not impressive. 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 picks on 56% completion percentage. How are they 5-2? They must make some kind of, there's always these hidden yards and hidden points. There's got to be something going on. Something has to be happening for them that is really good, because it's not like your normal shit. It's not happening offensively and it's not happening defensively. Texas opened up on Sunday or Monday as a 20.5 point favorite. It had to be Sunday. All the Quinn Ewers news started coming out, and then it's down to 17.5 now, I believe. So still a huge favorite. Still a huge amount of points Texas has given up. One thing about these BYU teams, and we talked about this a little bit before the season when we were previewing all these games on the schedule. BYU has got a bunch of grown men with families all over that roster. It's like a different culture there. A lot of these guys, they commit to BYU and then they go off for their mission trips for 2 years. And then they come back and they're 20, 21 years old. And by the time they're seniors, they're 25 years old, 26 years. There's a huge difference physically between a 26-year-old man and an 18-year-old kid. And this roster's got a lot of dudes like that. And they got families. And I'm talking like wives, kids, apartments. Mentally, they're in a different place than most kids playing Division I football. They're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. They're going to be disciplined. They're a team you do not want to dick around with. You don't want to give them opportunities. You don't want to let them be in a game. Random college football thoughts. What about this sign stealing shit? Is that cheating? Or is it no big deal? And I'm kind of on the fence, man. I'm not 100%. I'll tell you this. There's one side of this argument that says, why is this a big deal? You can go steal signs. You can watch them on the game, which you can. But the TV broadcast is not really designed to show you what's happening on the sideline all the time. So I think the probability of you being able to watch a TV broadcast of a game and really getting a good understanding of what's happening is probably pretty low. But I get the sentiment, right? Like, they're out there for public consumption. The problem is, and this is where it starts leaning more to the other way for me, it's against the rules, man. Like, just because it's dumb that there's a rule doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow the rule. And it certainly doesn't mean you shouldn't get punished if you do break the rule. I mean, I've seen people on the internet just flat out saying, this is no big deal. This is ridiculous. It's a stupid rule, so they shouldn't enforce it. Man, I don't know. I guess I'm just an old man or something, because I'm like, dude, it's a rule. I mean, I'm not saying I don't break rules. I break the speed limit all the time. If I get a ticket, that was the risk I was willing to take to get there faster. I think speed limits kind of suck. I think they're a stupid rule, but I got to deal with them. Jim Harbaugh in Michigan got a deal. I mean, they sent this guy, not Jim Harbaugh, some dude on the staff. This guy bought multiple tickets to Big Ten games. He's been going to Big Ten games and allegedly stealing signs like at a ridiculous level. Do I think it's like death penalty? Man, probably not. Is it like more suspension for Harbaugh? Probably should be. And again, it's against the rules. Didn't have any mailbag questions this week. You guys send me an email at horntakespodcast@gmail.com. We'll do some mailbagging. Join us Thursday for Deep Dive Thursday. We'll dig all into the statistics on this on this BYU Cougars team. We'll have our Sean's four big questions of the game for the BYU game coming up. We'll have some more random college football thoughts. Check out the podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Follow and subscribe, please. Won't cost you guys a thing. It'll help me out. I'd appreciate the support. You can email me at horntakespodcasts@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. I love them all. You guys have a good Tuesday night. Go Texas Rangers. Good luck in that World Series. Get hooked.